So, what we're going to do today is discover how your mind might be more than a witness to reality, it could be the architect.
Mm,
So,
the
in other words, we're
architect.
creating our own reality and
Okay.
we're going to explore how we're doing that.
Okay.
So, the title today is The Entangled Mind, how your awareness shapes your reality. And there we have a picture of an entangled mind.
Sounds like a book I would buy. Like, I want this as a book, please.
Maybe most people want an unentangled mind.
Yeah. Well, maybe, but maybe they don't actually.
So we're gonna look at exploring the quantum nature of manifestation. And if you go online on YouTube, there I don't know, there are hundreds of channels on manifestation.
Hmm.
So, but we're
Oh,
gonna look
yeah.
at this. I think we're gonna look
Thousands,
at this
maybe
more,
million.
maybe millions. Well, there are 8 billion people on YouTube.
Yeah,
Unbelievable. Anyway,
pretty much.
I don't think you'll find these ideas on any place else that I know of, but I haven't done a lot of research on it.
Like how you're dovetailing
Yeah,
pieces of information.
exactly. So, welcome to Mastering Thought, where we invite you to soar with us.
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
And so today we're going to start with the central mystery of quantum mechanics, which is best illustrated by the double slit experiment, which is extremely famous. And
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna show some illustrations here that are from a really really well done explanation of this, and I'm gonna put a link in the description so people can go watch the whole video
Hmm.
because it's really well done. So here is the dual
Yeah.
slit experiment. I call it the dual slit experiment. It probably better known as the double slit. Now this is from a video that's on YouTube. You can find it by Jim Al-Khalali, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he's a very famous guy, very famous physicist in England. And
Okay.
his presentation is well worth watching. So imagine you have a board here with two slits in it, and you have a
Hmm.
light source like a light bulb. And you can see in the illustration that the waves of light squeeze through the two slits
Right.
and they create two waves of light as a result. And where a trough meets a trough, they cancel. Uh, it goes dark. When a peak meets a peak, they add together. And so you end up on the right hand side of the diagram with what's called an interference pattern. So it's almost
Sorry.
like if you took two rocks and threw them in a pool. And so you'd have these expanding wave patterns, and eventually they'd bump into one another and they'd form an interference pattern. And if we measured it, it would look very much like the target on the right hand side. Okay?
Give me 1 second. I can't find my mute button. Okay.
I hate it when that happens.
I'm gonna grab a water actually. I'll be
Okay.
right back.
Okay, so imagine we took the same target and now we're going to use like a gun. And this gun on the left hand side of this picture is going to fire atoms or subatomic particles through the target with the two slits. Now, what you find is when you do this, is you get the same type of interference pattern on the target. So it's as if the atoms went through the two slits like waves from a light source. Now,
Okay.
and if you go look at the actual video, there's a more detailed explanation of this. But this interference pattern occurs whether you fire the atoms individually or in a group. So if you took, 5 minutes to fire an atom one at a time, after the 5 minutes, you'd have this interference pattern. Or you could do it all at once and use
Okay.
so the atoms would go through the two slits and it would create an interference pattern as if the atoms were not discrete particles but a wave.
Okay.
All right,
Right.
now here's the wrinkle. If we measure this, then the atoms go through one slit or the other. There is no wave
Right.
anymore. There's no interference pattern. It's as if they became particles.
Right. Well, I know within like quantum physics that light is both a particle and a wave. And so
Uh-huh.
it exists in multiple dimensions already.
So we're
And
in
so with the observation, it's like it has to kind of choose one if it wants to be a particle or a wave, right?
well, this
And that's why
isn't
it's different.
right. You can do this with photons. You can do this. I believe you can do this with atoms. And so
Yeah.
the key difference between this here and this here is you can see there's a little detector there.
Yeah. It's the measurement device or something.
Right. So if it's observed or
Yeah.
measured, the wave function collapses, and we'll get to that later, and they start behaving as if they're actual particles, and so we get these two distinct
Right.
bands on the target.
And so it's really just like awareness of it that's changing its behavior, even
Oh,
though it can do something different when it's not being observed.
yeah, if we do this without any observation or measurement and come back later and see the result, we get an interference pattern. But
Yeah, but like
if
even if we're in the room, right? For the second one.
yeah, the well, actually, this uh, double slit experiment has been done in a wide variety of forms,
Right.
in, literally thousands of times,
Mm-hmm.
and they get the same result in a variety of different circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know that there are physicists and neuroscientists that watch our podcast, and I'm sure I'm going to get straightened out.
Well, straighten us out, please. We want to get this right. We don't want to be wrong.
Okay, so this is the central mystery of quantum mechanics, where things turn from a wave function to a particle function simply through observation or measurement.
Right. Yeah. And
Now,
like as I was reading, before you measure it, it exists in both states or multiple states of possibility all at once.
we're going to address that here. So, so what we would say is, if we go back here to the wave function, it's a good way of thinking about it is it's the particles are in a superposition,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then they choose, like you said before, they choose to be either a wave or a particle. So imagine, if you will, we have two boxes with a ball in it, and half of the ball is painted red and half is painted yellow.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not going to explain how entanglement happens in physics because I don't really understand it myself. But
Right.
if we entangled these two balls and we closed the boxes, and I gave you one, and you took it to your house, and I have one here on my desk. If I opened, let's say I'm standing at the right side of the box. When I open the lid, I'm going to see the red part of the ball, aren't I?
Right.
Since the balls are entangled, when you open your box, you're going to see the red part of the ball as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the orientation of the ball is going to be subject to the observer.
The orientation of the ball is subject to the observer. Okay.
So since the balls are entangled,
Mm-hmm.
when the one is observed, the other one takes the identical position.
Mm-hmm.
If it's unobserved, if nobody's observing it, then they say that the balls are in superposition. They have a probability of being yellow or red,
Mm-hmm.
but
Equal
that
amounts.
probability doesn't emerge until somebody opens a box.
Mm-hmm. Right. It exists in both states, just kind of like Schrodinger's
Right.
cat. Like
That's
it's
right.
both dead and alive until you open the box.
That's right. That's exactly right. And
Yeah.
so, and so, and I'm not going to get deep into this because I'm not qualified to really get to that level of it. But this concept of superposition is very important to where we're going to go here.
Right. And superposition is when it returns to its original pre-observed state where it can be in multiple dimensions. It can be something in multiple dimensions.
Well, I wouldn't say dimensions, it's multiple states. It could be either red or yellow in this case.
Sure. Okay.
Dimension, I'm not sure.
Okay. I just know what I've been reading, but I don't know enough to know why the author wrote it like that.
So, but the key concept here is the balls have to be entangled, and there is a way. Now, right now, Google has just made a big breakthrough in quantum computing, and one of the tenets of quantum computing, instead of having bits that are either on and off in traditional computers, they have
Right.
a bit that's in superposition. So it's in
Hmm.
all positions at once, and it makes it,
Right. It can go ahead.
well, it just makes it tremendously more powerful and fast.
Right. Yeah. It seems like with quantum mechanics and quantum computing, at least like the image that I'd seen was if you imagined like a whole grid of squares together, and the information can go up or down or left or right to the next
Hmm.
bit next to it that does the same. And that's supposed to be actually how our brains work as well.
That's where we're going.
Yeah. Oh, cool. It's how leaves collect light and turn it into food. It actually doesn't travel along the veins. It travels in more of a quantum mechanics, like take the direct route.
Okay, so you're setting this up perfectly. So, what if quantum mechanics, often seen as a phenomenon of the subatomic world, what if it could have implications beyond particles and into the realm of human perception and experience?
Yeah. Well, can I make one point to kind of drive yours home? I feel like
Go
we could
ahead.
have said it on the end of the last slide, but it was oh shoot. What did you just say? Darn this mind of mine. Okay, can you go back to the next slide? No, the forward two. What if oh, that's what it was. Entanglement. Usually in examples of entanglement, people will just discuss two particles being entangled, but in fact it can get into the thousands or more of particles that can be entangled all at once. And so the reason why I bring it up is I think it can start to make sense of how many people or many things or maybe many organisms can be
Hmm.
involved in this one invisible thing in front of us.
Trillions and trillions and trillions of entangled particles.
Yeah. So cool.
So it
Yeah.
creates a
Okay.
shared reality.
Yeah. I just wanted to make that point because usually people only discuss it in terms of a pair.
I think that's excellent. I'm glad you brought that up because that's a key concept right there.
Yeah. Yeah. So we need to see like a whole network being formed, I think.
Right. Okay, so we're going to take a speculative leap here, which is what you're talking about right now. Quantum entanglement
Woohoo.
shows particles can instantaneously affect each other, suggesting a deeper interconnectedness in nature.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
superposition implies multiple probabilities exist until
Right.
observed, which
Right.
might parallel our awareness, how our awareness selects experiences, and how we
Mm-hmm.
share experiences with one another.
Mm.
The
Maybe
observer,
how you're drawn to something or pushed away from something, maybe. I don't know. I'm just kind
I,
of exploring here.
no, I'm glad you are because I totally agree with that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you have no idea how long I worked on this week to try to organize this in a coherent manner.
I
It's
bet it
just,
was a part-time job this
yeah,
week.
it was, it was, it was tough to think of all the important things to say in a concise manner. It was really difficult.
Yeah, yeah. Syntax, that's what that's called.
So the observer effect demonstrates that observation alters outcomes, raising the question, could our awareness do the same in daily life?
It's $1 million question right there.
It is. So, but
Wow.
this is a huge leap. I mean, nobody in the lab is, no legitimate scientist has they're gone this far. There are some physicists who have speculated along these lines. I think Roger
Mm.
Penrose might be one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the
Well,
question
yeah.
then,
If observation is what changes things. Okay.
so the question is life a quantum field? And here are some characteristics. These are the three characteristics of quantum fields. They're inherently probabilistic. You can't say exactly what's happening
Right.
everywhere in the field at once, only
Right.
the odds of something happening like a particle appearing.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
And you can do this mathematically. You can predict the odds that a particle will appear.
Yeah. In fact, it changes based on if you're looking at like a photon or a molecule or an atom. They all have their
Mm-hmm.
own formulas, and usually it looks like what is the probable chance for A or B to be true
Right.
is what I was looking at. But then it's kind of interesting. Maybe this is in the weeds too much, but it was saying like basically you start measuring with one and then you see what the entangled particle does and you measure that. But when you're done measuring, they all return back to the superposition like they were in multiple states before measured. It's so crazy.
It's weird. Einstein
Yeah.
called it spooky.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right.
Okay, so quantum fields can fluctuate even in empty space due to the uncertainty principle, leading to virtual particles popping in and out of existence. Okay,
In and out of existence.
right.
Wow.
Now, the other thing about quantum fields is they're quantized, meaning energy in the field comes in discrete packets, those particles we're talking about, not a smooth flow.
Say that
Okay, so
again, please. Will you?
they're 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 quantized, which means the energy in the field comes in discrete packets. Well, what's a packet? It's a particle. It's
Okay.
material. It's
So you're not meaning I'm not gonna say this right. Uh, there's a special term for when you break down energy to its smallest points, but basically there's only four building blocks. I thought quantizing was when you start breaking apart those blocks so that you get back to like the original four building blocks. No?
not according to what I was reading. It
Okay.
may be,
Okay.
but um, what they're saying is you can't measure the energy across the field. You can only measure the energy when it becomes a particle.
Oh.
Now,
Hmm.
again, the scientists who are watching this are probably thinking, "Oh my God," but I'm trying to lead somewhere. I'm building to some other point here. I'm not trying to be an expert on quantum fields or quantum mechanics.
Okay.
So, but however, if you want to be part of a community that's exploring these ideas of consciousness and awareness, Christina and I are about to launch an online community called Thought Masters.
Mm-hmm. Soar with us.
Soar with us.
Mm-hmm.
And if you scan the QR code, it will take you to a form, and there's a box you can check if you want to be one of the founders of this community. And we're going to launch it fairly quickly, so they're going to get a 50% discount. All right. So enough theory. How does this actually work? That's so kind of wanted some building blocks here, and now we're going to try to put it
Yeah.
together, make sense out of it. So the question then becomes, what if awareness is the catalyst? And in this case, awareness is, in quantum terms, would be a measurement or observation. But in human
Mm-hmm.
terms, we're not measuring, necessarily observing things in that sense. We're aware of things. We have awareness.
Mm-hmm.
What if awareness is the catalyst for experience or our reality?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is my view of this, which is another speculative leap here. So let's talk about your awareness of experience. Now, here's a picture of a cup. In my theory, my awareness of the cup is the cup that I am aware of. I'm not just
Mm-hmm.
looking at a cup. I'm aware of a cup, and the cup that I am aware of is my awareness of it. So there's no
Right.
separation between my awareness of the cup and the cup that I'm aware of.
Right.
So my awareness of my experience is the experience that I'm aware of. It's kind of mind bending
Mm-hmm.
at first,
Mm-hmm.
but
Actually, it kind of makes me think about like multiplication, how 2 times 3 is the same thing as 3 times 2. They're both
uh
the same.
huh. So let me take it a step further here. So without awareness, there can be no experience. Have you ever had an
Oh.
experience you weren't aware of? No.
What about when I like went to the hospital and I went under?
You had an experience of absence.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So without experience, conversely, there can be no awareness of it.
Right.
Now I kind of botched the little wording down below this picture, but this is imagine this guy is in his garage, which is basically a quantum field.
His quantum garage.
His quantum garage, and there are objects in the garage all around him,
Right.
potentially. So the quantum garage has the probability of having lots of different objects in it.
Mm-hmm.
But he can only experience the object that his awareness illuminates.
He can only experience the object that his awareness illuminates. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Right.
So now
Without
to
it there,
his,
it's just a dark, empty field,
that's right.
possibly.
So to the left of him,
Mm-hmm.
possibly could be a bicycle.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not going to be aware of the bicycle unless he points the flashlight to the bicycle.
Mm-hmm.
But if he does that, if he moves the flashlight, the object he's looking at no longer is in his awareness.
Mm-hmm.
It basically shrinks back into the
Unmeasured again.
it's what you said a few minutes ago. Now it's just part of the quantum probability that that object is still
Okay.
there somewhere.
Okay.
So awareness ensures the probability that should be that an experience will pop out of the quantum field.
Okay.
So the idea I'm presenting is this is not dualistic. And I believe this is at the core of many mystical teachings, and I never can pronounce this correct. One of the most famous is uh, Advaita Vedanta, which is, I think, Hindu.
Hmm.
So without awareness, there is no experience. If there is no experience, there can be no awareness of it.
Mm-hmm.
You're never aware of something that's not an experience, are you?
I guess not. I feel like where my mind keeps wanting to go, and maybe you can help me iron this out. I keep wanting to think about like, well, what about experiences that I've heard about? But maybe it's the hearing about them is my experience
Yeah,
of
that's
them
correct.
or
That's
something.
that's
Okay.
correct. So
Okay.
so if I go and I have an ice cream cone and I tell you about it, your experience of the ice cream cone is my narrative about the ice cream cone. I'm the one who experienced the ice cream cone.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I don't know why
So
you didn't get me one. We're hanging out, but that's fine, I guess. I'll remember it though.
maybe you're lactose intolerant. Who knows?
Oh, I'm a lot of things food intolerant anyway. uh,
Clearly, I'm not.
yeah. Well, I'm
So,
aware of my experience with that. So going back into the conversation.
so the idea here is without awareness, there is no experience, which makes perfect sense.
Right.
And if there's no experience, there could be no awareness of it.
Right.
So
Okay.
the stuff of life I'm proposing is one thing: awareness of experience. It's a
Okay.
continuous feedback loop.
Okay. Yeah.
Awareness creates the experience. The experience is created because I'm aware of it, and there's this constant interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and there's Sunny.
That's my sunny bunny.
So if you like and subscribe, Sunny will get a dog treat.
That's so true. In fact, we gotta do a video where she gets to get all her dog treats, and maybe we can give a special update while she's chomping.
All right. So here now, gets really interesting, I believe. So creating
Yeah.
reality or manifesting our lives. Now here, this is very interesting factoid. Studies suggest the brain updates its conscious awareness in cycles roughly 7 to 13 times per second,
Okay.
which is
Oh, so a
roughly
hertz is really 1 time per second? That's what hertz means?
right. Well, it
Oh,
hertz is the frequency. How often does it happen?
okay. I never really thought about it like that. Okay, so hertz is a frequency.
So,
True.
so we, in other words, we refresh our awareness every uh, 10 times a second, which is the
Mm-hmm.
frequency of alpha brainwaves,
Mm-hmm.
which would be
Okay.
6
And
hertz,
those
I
are
believe.
good. Those are
Right.
good. Oh, I know being in alpha state is like 7 or 8 to 13,
Yeah.
something like that. Was what
That
I was reading
that's
about it.
that's
Yeah.
exactly what this is saying. So the
But you're
brain
saying alpha
is
waves are six. An alpha
well,
wave is six.
no, theta
Seven.
is 6. I'm sorry. Alpha is
Okay.
about 12. Right.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Give or take. I used to do EEG neurofeedback, so I spent my day measuring brain waves, and I'm sorry I got that confused.
It's okay.
So,
You're human too.
yeah, so
Okay.
roughly the frequency of alpha waves is how often the brain updates its conscious awareness. So if we go back to this, to this,
Mm-hmm.
so we have this interaction between awareness and experience refreshing at the rate of alpha waves.
Okay.
Okay. So what we're seeing, what we're experiencing is a movie that has separate frames. A movie is not a continuous thing in motion, it's frames that are stitched together.
Right.
And that's,
Right. Oh, you just made me remember something really important.
go ahead.
With observing the particles, it was saying that just looking at particles doesn't really teach you that much about like the quantum mechanics or quantum physics per se. It's about watching what happens between the frames that really tells you the story. But just like a movie, if you just saw pictures of a movie, you wouldn't know the story. It's about watching what happens from one frame to the next.
Well, this makes perfect sense that this is happening because these cycles might reflect moments when awareness collapses quantum possibilities into experience.
So like they're not in the superposition anymore. Now your awareness has helped them
right?
to choose a state, and that
Right.
changes the state of your reality in front of you.
So what this suggests is
Okay.
there's this rhythmic dance between awareness and an experience. So the brain is going like this, collapsing this field into.
Okay. Uh-oh. I stopped hearing you.
Oops, I'm sorry, I touched my microphone.
Okay.
So
So
we're
it collapses
experience
it in the field and then
and we're experiencing this refresh at the rate of 7 to 13 times per second, and we're really literally what we're doing is we're building our reality 13 times a second through this dance between awareness and experience.
wow.
Does that make sense?
It does to me. It's neat. It's really neat.
So what I'm doing is I'm stitching all these things together,
Yeah.
and now why is alpha important? Well, alpha is important because we go into alpha states when we do mindfulness and meditation, hypnosis,
Mhm.
lots of different things. You can get
It means
biofeedback.
you're happy.
You can get biofeedback machines that help reinforce alpha.
Mm. I was looking it up too, and there's like other things like putting solfeggio tones on or binaural beats, and you had a kind of audio that you were talking about too.
So way back in, I think the 70s or 80s, the Monroe Institute, I believe it was Robert Monroe, conceived of this technology called binaural beats. I'm not probably pronouncing that
Hmm.
binaural beats. Anyway, you listen to two different frequencies in the earphones, and the mixing of those two frequencies creates this beat that would be alpha in this case.
Cool. Okay.
And he
Okay.
established the Monroe Institute, and they have recordings that you can listen to that are
Cool.
cross hemispheric that create this effect.
Like your hemispheres of your brain.
That's right. It's called
Oh, okay.
hemisync.
Oh, hemisync. Okay.
It's trying to synchronize the two right and the left of the brain.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, but wait. This creation process has baggage. So what we've established here so far is that if we speculate, we can see a system where we're creating our own reality out of a quantum field by collapsing the wave function into the particle function through awareness, creating experiences, and we're doing this
Right.
7 to 13 times a second.
Wow.
But there's a fly in the ointment,
Okay.
and it's a familiar fly.
All too familiar.
That's right. So the self, in quotes, that's creating this is filled with noise and distortion. Okay, why is this the case? Well, because we have this thing in the brain called the default mode network
Hmm.
that creates a false sense of self. It's driven by the limbic system, which is all about survival,
Yeah.
and or we could call it the ego.
It's not very mature, I'll tell you that.
It's basically a 5-year-old emotional child, and it creates a
Hmm.
narrative in our heads that we believe it is ourselves.
Hmm. Which is so funny because if a 5-year-old explained your life to you, you would for sure it would be cute, first of all, but you wouldn't believe everything they said. You
Well,
might appreciate some points they make, but you would never be like, I'm going to base my life off of the things this 5-year-old says.
well, the
But we
problem
do it in
is
our own head.
the problem is that the 5-year-old has the voice that sounds like you, it feels like you, it has your tone and timbre, feels like it's been there forever. So we distinguish it as ourselves instead of a 5-year-old.
Yeah, right,
And
right.
I'm going to link. I'll link a video or two to the end cards if you want to explore more about the default mode network and the false self, because this is a big deal.
A
It's a
big deal.
huge deal.
Yeah. If you feel like you're trapped in your life or in your head, you want to look at that video.
And so what we do is, because we believe we are the voice in our heads and we believe we are the self, that feeling of me, instead of the higher self, the true self, we
Mm-hmm.
create our lives motivated by survival. And I'm going to be very stark about this. What that means is, I want you to die if necessary so I can live.
Mm-hmm.
That's the bottom line motivation. And so this leads to self promotion and self gain
Right.
and personal gain.
Right.
Okay, so now we've established, if you believe everything we've said, that we're creating our own reality 7 to 13 times a second. But unfortunately, there's this interloper that stepped in to help us out,
Mm-hmm.
that we don't need and we don't want, and it's creating all kinds of havoc and problems.
Right.
So the false self creates a life of struggle, strife, and drama. So we have this destiny, this higher purpose, this meaning that we're, supposedly that we're here to carry out, but we have this noise that keeps interfering with us and distorts us, that creates, in the midst of all this, struggle and strife and drama.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because we believe we are the me in the head that's talking to us.
Mm-hmm. And we don't
And so,
have to.
and we don't, yeah, it's not a requirement. We think it is,
Yeah.
but it's not. So
Yeah.
life flowing from our true self, or our higher self, or the real self, you might say, is characterized by authenticity, peace, purpose, interconnectedness, and effortless action or flow.
Mm. Who doesn't want that? So these are more available when you're in an alpha state.
Yes, because it's a state of alert relaxation.
Alert relaxation. Cool. Okay.
It's also a state you go into when you're really focused and concentrating on something, to the exclusion
Mm-hmm.
of other things.
Mm-hmm. Which makes sense because, like, doing crafts and art was another way you can bring your
Mm-hmm.
mind into the alpha state, or like, yeah,
Yeah,
making
or
me.
like a
Mm-hmm.
coder, somebody who's coding. I mean, they're totally immersed in this thing. I'm sure that would generate a lot of alpha waves. There's
Mm-hmm.
no
So,
sense of
like, when people
self.
talk about flow state, that's an alpha experience, alpha wave
I, I
experience.
I think it probably is, but I don't know that for a
Okay.
fact. There was
Sure.
an excellent book written 20 years ago or more called Flow, and it was by a gentleman that I cannot pronounce his name. I think he was Czechoslovakian. I'm not sure.
Mm.
I did hear somebody correctly pronounce his name once, and I was greatly admired the person who did it.
You're like, wow, such poise.
And I'm sure we're going to have listeners who know how to pronounce that name, and they're going to say, "What?
Spell it
It's not
phonetically
that
for us,
hard."
please.
I want to get back to this idea of interconnectedness, because it's what you were talking about earlier. How
Yeah.
this this emergence of the what was the word when the two balls were connected?
Entanglement?
Entanglement.
The
So
Yeah.
this interconnectedness, I believe, is this entanglement, this quantum entanglement.
Sure. Well, and it kind of reminds me too of like I don't think I said it uh in this conversation, but like that reminds me of when birds do murmurations or something. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's not the right time to bring it up, but that interconnectedness, like this huge wave pulling all these creatures into like one bigger macroorganism or something like that. Like that same phenomenon happens inside of us
I
too.
think that's true, because societies have a consciousness, groups have a consciousness.
Absolutely.
So there is this interconnectedness that happens, and I believe it can be explained through quantum entanglement, because there's this shared reality that's emerging from this creative process that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And, the same thing would be true in a relationship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So let's talk about manifestation techniques. And there's tons of videos on YouTube about this. Um, so I think at this point we have reason to believe that the spiritual practices that encourage alpha are probably going to be the most productive.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe that until disidentification and self-awareness takes place, all of this manifestation is probably counterproductive because this false self is just going to continue to try to interfere in the process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder about that because I was thinking too, like when I was looking it up, that craniosacral, which is a body work that I do, does assist people into the alpha state anyway, but I would even say too, I would argue back that practicing that disidentification and awareness will help you get into that alpha state, or having someone with you who will help your body relax will maybe show your mind how to um, go into that alpha state too, and that might bring more awareness to you when someone assists you into going there.
I think you're absolutely on target because I think what you're describing, disidentification also puts you in peace. And peace
Yeah,
is an alpha
exactly.
state.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
So,
And I can have people who are in terribly emotionally hard situations, and they can lay on my table and even be talking about it, and I can
mhm,
watch their entire body language, mood, mental state shift into like one of peace even while they're discussing the thing that is
sure,
making them not feel peaceful outside of that moment.
right,
Yeah. So,
excellent.
okay. Well, and I guess that just makes sense why other things are a tool too, like the music or journaling or art or visualization, meditation, mindfulness.
I tell you, I love classical music, and I'm sure, I mean,
Yeah.
when I hear Rhapsody in Blue, I know I go into an altered state of consonant consciousness.
Hmm.
You know,
There was
it's
some video that was saying when you listen to people's music that your brain waves start to mimic what the music waves are. And so
probably
it
true.
literally is pulling you into their state of mind.
Hmm. Well, there were studies on pregnant women and what happened to their fetuses when they listened to classical music. It was highly beneficial.
Hmm. Wow.
Okay, so we've got the problem, the ego problem in manifesting now. So
Hmm.
when let's just say, for instance, we're going to do some meditation. Okay, well, we got two problems. Number one is we have a meditator that we have to create to get us to meditate. That's an issue
Hmm.
completely separate, but that's a false self. The meditator is a false self. The meditation itself
Okay.
is not a false self.
Right, right, right. It's just an action.
But during meditation, the paradox of the false self asserting personal gain is going to be there in the meditation because you're going to be trying to
Right.
do good meditation,
Trying to relax, trying to get clear headed. Right.
and you may have a goal. Maybe the goal is to find a better relationship or get a new car or whatever. you know but what you can do then is when those things start to invade the meditative state, you can acknowledge those as the false self trying to assert what it wants,
Right.
and watch that dissipate. But there's always going to be this, anything that in the practice that's grasping or wanting, desperation and struggle, can be viewed as the false self, and
Right. Right.
allow yourself to be in the paradox of trying to be in the higher self on the one hand and have the false self introducing these negative influences and noise
Yeah.
into it at the same time.
Right. And just for clarity, like if this is someone's first video watching, they've watching of us, the like the other choice is your higher self, which like we would describe as is already peaceful, is already healed, is already
Right.
whole. It already exists inside of you. It's just a matter of becoming aware of that part of yourself. So,
And you become aware of it emerges when you start disidentifying with the voice in your head
with
and
that ego.
the false
Yeah.
sense of me that lives in your head, because the
Right.
thing that's always been there finally becomes visible and you can
Mhm.
experience it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll say the higher self seems to make things very simple, and the ego seems to make things very complicated. So the higher self might say something like, I don't prefer whatever. I don't prefer that, whatever. I'm making something up. I don't really like lying, but it's the only thing that can come to my head right now. So I prefer not lying. I would like to live a life where I don't lie. That would be something that like the higher self would say, for example, whereas the ego might say, you're crazy for lying. Don't you know if you're lying, you're going to get caught? And if you get caught, what's going to happen? And da, da, da. Like, to my experience, is that fair? Would you say that's fair?
I think you're bringing in what I wanted to say in this particular slide,
Mm,
because what we need to do is transform our personal agenda into something more positive and universal.
mm-hmm.
So if my goal is to have a better relationship, I don't go and try to manifest a better relationship. I try to understand why I'm in the circumstance I'm in.
Mm,
If I'm
yeah.
if I'm feeling frustrated or stuck in my life, I need to understand what's the pain that's underneath that.
Yeah.
Can I hold
Right.
myself accountable? Can I, how does not having what
Huge.
I want, how is that an opportunity for personal growth?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
What am I supposed to learn? I'm in conflict with somebody. What am I supposed to learn about myself from this conflict? Rather than try to
Mm-hmm.
resolve the conflict, you go to the second order, and the second order is, okay, I'm in conflict. What am I supposed to learn from this? What am I
Mm-hmm.
supposed to see that I'm not seeing?
Mm-hmm.
And that comes from a state of being accepting and surrendering, and also, a sense of community. So, what we
Mm.
need to do is transform our ego's goals into more universal truths and use those to establish um, the direction we want to take with our manifestation practice.
Okay.
So, in other words, I'm going to have an intention, but along the way, I'm going to make space for, okay, this intention is going to be an opportunity for personal growth. And when the ego comes in and wants to start striving over this goal, I'm able to set that aside and say, okay, I'm supposed to be learning something here. What am I learning?
Right. Yeah. Don't need to keep
I'm
hitting your head against the wall.
right. And so what this does is it changes the practice of manifestation into something more aligned with our higher consciousness instead of the agenda of our limited self and what it
Yeah.
wants.
That's striving.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
Okay.
mean, it's just like, I want my husband to love me more. Okay, well, okay, that's my intention, but what is it about me that makes me look at it like he doesn't love me, and what can I learn from that? My emotional
Mm-hmm.
reaction, where is the pain coming from? What's this really all about? Instead
Right.
of just saying, okay, I'm going to have an intention for him to change and I'm going to manifest that self without ever looking
Yeah.
at myself or taking any personal responsibility.
or wondering what it's like to live with me.
Exactly.
Well, I love what you say that relationships aren't meant to make you happy, they're meant to make you aware.
Hmm. Yeah.
And and that, oh no, well, and that your reactions to others say more about you than it does say anything about them. That's been
Right.
like one of the best phrases I could have heard to start taking more responsibility for
Hmm.
myself and my reactions.
Well, everybody wants to manifest money. I mean, there's a 10,000 videos on YouTube about how to manifest money.
Hmm.
Well, okay, the ego wants to manifest money.
Sure.
Okay, so the higher self might say, okay, you need to look at what it is about you that makes you feel the lack of money. What is it about you
Hmm.
that makes you that you need to learn about money? So I have an intention to have more money and more abundance in my life, but is there something that's blocking that? What can I see about myself that I could learn from?
Yeah. Okay. And then, like, just for the sake of like carrying the example out to the end, so that in that moment you would then try to observe, especially if you've already disidentified, but you would
Mm-hmm.
try to observe, like, oh, I have a want for money.
Right.
How does this relate back to my early childhood experiences? Like that kind of a thing. And then
Mm-hmm.
wait for the answer to come to you, kind of a
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
So everything
Cool.
becomes an opportunity to go deeper and to learn more and to be more authentic and more real. And if you're coming from that place, the false self is less likely to intervene with personal gain and another agenda that kind of pollutes the flow of your life.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so in
Excellent.
conclusion, so this has been highly speculative. I've drawn some
The
conclusions that
theory.
physics doesn't allow me to at this point.
Mm.
But we've taken the principles of quantum mechanics and we've understood how that might have to do with how we create reality and the relationship between awareness and experience, and um, the interference from the default mode network and the false self, and how we need more clarity from that to manifest more in our lives. And I want to share how this is working for me because I've had some
Okay.
really interesting experiences lately.
Mm-hmm.
One of which is when I build these presentations out. Last night I went to bed, and before I went to bed, I realized there was more to this than I had was able to put out already.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I just had a clear intention that the pieces would come, and then I just forgot about it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't worry about it, I didn't stress about it. I just completely surrendered to the fact that there was more and I didn't see it yet, and maybe I would. I would just put it
Mm-hmm.
out of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And the next morning I got up and I started working on this, and ideas started coming to me.
Nice.
And I've had more and more experiences like that. I mean, even meeting you was one of those
Mm-hmm.
experiences.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like, how am I going to do this? I need to find a partner. And it was just like, okay, I need to find a partner. Great, that's an idea. And then boom, there you were.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think it came to me because I wasn't interested in struggling with it.
That is such an important phrase. Oh, because I wasn't interested in struggling with it. I feel like I should use that in dialoguing in my work when I do body work. Oh, so I see you're interested in struggling with this. Tell
Aren't
me.
we all? The ego loves the struggle.
Uh-huh. Right. And it loves if it can like make you think that you're like, poor you. You're the victim. Poor
Right.
you. Aw. And like, it's such a natural thing, but there's so many other perspectives. You have so much more power than you think when you do that.
So, one of the things that really makes this a lot easier is if you have the awakening experience. If,
Yeah.
if you know for sure you're not the voice in your head, it is
Hmm.
an awakening to the peace that's inside of you. And
Hmm.
if you're interested in these concepts, just a reminder: scan the QR code if you need anything. I got a message from somebody the other day who wanted a consultation. They used the form, and I responded, and I never heard back. So, but if you do have a question or a need of some kind, you're interested in finding out more about our online community, there'll also be a link in the description if you don't know how to scan a QR code. And I know some of us are unfamiliar with that.
Hmm.
Um,
I can also just say, if you're one of them, you can just open your phone camera.
yeah,
You don't have to do anything special. And then a little yellow bubble should pop up around the
right.
box on your screen
Yeah, if you just take your phone and point it at the QR code, you have to open your
on
camera.
camera.
So I'm
Hmm.
going to open my camera, and when I open the camera and I point it at the QR code, um, the URL for the link comes right up on the phone, and I just touch it, and it takes me there.
Yep.
If you've never done
Superimposes
that
on the
before.
picture. Yeah.
Also,
Cool. What a fun topic. Go ahead.
I've written 3 books. Um, you're more than welcome to check them out. The Dance of the Lion and the Unicorn is about relationships. It's also an Audible book. And what else in wrapping up today, Christina?
Hmm. I don't know. I just think that this concept is so exciting just to understand how entangled particles could affect us in so many different ways. And I think that I think that the world is a quantum field. Like I think that the
Mm-hmm.
world is a series of electromagnetic fields overlapping.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a roundabout way, we can be connected with almost anything that exists anywhere.
Or we already
Uh,
are.
yeah.
The other thing that this brought home to me was, I used to think of this idea of creating your reality as some kind of grunting effort thing that we made.
Hmm.
And the more I organized this information, the more I realized it's a spontaneous thing happening every second.
Mm.
And that we just tend to turn everything into a struggle. So
Automatically. It's a feature.
it's, it's not a bug.
Yeah. Oh man.
All right.
So cool. Well, thank you. I
Thank
look forward
you.
to our next chat.
Yeah, you made a valuable contribution today. I didn't know that you had read about all this stuff. That's great.
Oh, come on.
No, no, seriously. I didn't know you were deep into quantum stuff. That's neat.
Well, you know that you have a special interest when you start picking up quantum physics for beginners for fun because you're trying to figure out why on earth the body work that you do is creating these miracles in front of your face.
Very
So,
interesting. Very interesting.
yeah.
All right,
Anyway.
everybody, please come back.
Yeah, and write any comments if you have any questions or if you want to please straighten us out. Like we're here for it. See you in the comments section.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.